Hello friends, today we will be talking about deindustrialization. And while talking about deindustrialization of India, we will be focusing ourselves exclusively with the textile and handloom industry. Okay. Now, why do we do so? Because textile and handloom industry were those part of the industrial complex of India which were greatly the most devastatingly affected by British policies as it comes to when it comes to the trade and industrial policy of Britain during this period. Now, what we see is that the textile and handloom industry of India by the early part of the 18th century was a thriving industry with its own industrial centers in Awadh and industrial centers also in Bengal. Certain industrial centers spread all across the entire subcontinent, Indian subcontinent. But what we see is that by the end of the 18th century, we see a sharp decline in the industrial centers. We also see sharp depopulation when it comes to workers in the industries. In the handloom and textile industry, we see a dissolution of the working masses of which are connected to the textile and handloom industry. Now, how this comes about, that is the question, and that question is directly related to the deindustrialization of India under British rule. So what we have to keep in mind is the industrial revolution. The industrial revolution in Britain has already taken up pace. Okay, it has picked up pace right after 1750s when the first important discoveries concerned with the industrial revolution of Britain, that is the spinning wheel and the use of steam to generate mechanized power. Okay, those kind of scientific discoveries, the important scientific discoveries that precedes the industrial revolution. The industrial revolution being predicated upon scientific discoveries. These discoveries start taking place since 1750s, and by the coming of the 1800s, we see that industrial revolution picks up pace. Okay, and it produces new classes in Britain, new classes of people in Britain. It also produces new methods of production and manufacture. It also produces new methods when it comes to trading. Okay, and all of these have great bearing upon the deindustrialization of India. Now we see that before 1750s or before the later part of the 18th century and before the early 19th century, the context upon which the contact with Europe had been established by India was the primary context was trade. Okay, it had never been territorial in nature. There was a dichotomy between trade and territory, but this dichotomy, okay, this division, the context, it gets subverted. The context of trade, it gets subverted by the coming of the later part of the 18th century and the early part of the 19th century. Okay, trade no longer is the chief context in which contact with Europeans is taking place in India. The context also turns to territorial acquisitions, war, okay, and politics. Now the context is changing, and this change in context has directly to do with the industrial revolution of England. Okay, and this is connected to deindustrialization. Okay, how, we will explain. Now let us see the primary products of trade with Europe before the industrial revolution was cotton and silk textile. Cotton and silk textiles took up the lion's share of trade with Europe, and not just cotton and silk textiles, but certain luxuries. Okay, this is the context in which trade is taking place. These are the primary items on which trade is taking place, and also certain items like tea and sugar. But these items have not percolated. The demand for these items had not percolated to the general masses of the people because of the stratified nature of the society back then. Okay, in England, and that is before the start of the industrial revolution, before the coming up of different other classes which are produced by the industrial revolution. Okay, so cotton and silk. Okay, this you have to remember that this is the context in which primarily trade is taking place, and this is While talking about cotton and silk textiles, we're talking about finished products, okay. The demand for cotton and silk textile, finished cotton and silk textile, comes from the fine quality, okay, the fine quality of cotton and silk textiles that is being produced in India. And who is demanding the who is demanding finished cotton and silk textiles? Is the aristocracy. This is the demand, okay, this is the market for cotton and silk textiles produced in India, the market which is present in Britain. But by the industrial revolution, the aristocracy, okay, loses most of its power. It will later on lose almost all of its power and privileges. We see the bourgeois class rising. We see this class of people rising, and they can now afford things which people before they could not, such as tea, sugar. Okay, these are the commodities which they can afford. There is also, however, a demand among the proletariat, the working classes, which are again products of the industrial revolution, for cotton and silk textiles. But this the demand among the proletariat for cotton and silk textiles is not of high quality and high finished cotton and silk textiles which are produced in centers such as Kanpur and Dhaka. The demand is for cheaply produced cotton and silk textiles. So what does Britain do? Export raw materials from India and produce those same textiles, okay. So the finished material, produce it in Britain, okay, for the proletariat. What does Britain do to to fulfill the demand of the bourgeoisie? That is for tea and sugar. Trade in cash crops in India, okay. Therefore, if you can acquire territories, force people to produce what is in demand in Britain, you would do that. Therefore, the context changes from trade to territory. Therefore, after after the second part of 18th centuries, and after the coming of the 19th century, we see the modality of the British establishment of power in India changing. The modality has changed from trade to territory. The modality has changed from just conducting trade to meddling into political affairs of the Indian states, okay. They want this territory because of the economic need that has been created by the industrial revolution. Now, you have the machines in Manchester, the machines for production of textiles, okay. You got the machines in Manchester. So why do we need to have finished products in India? Of course, you can take the raw materials from India, produce it in Manchester, and you can sell it among the classes that require those products. And on top of that, why not sell those same products? Why not import those same products back into India and then export those products back into India and sell it among the Indian masses? Because cotton and silk textiles, silk you can negate by this point of time, but at least cotton textiles, Indians too, they need cotton textile, okay. Indians too, they need clothing to wear, all right. But the demand is not for high quality clothing, but cheaply produced machine made clothing, okay. This demand is fulfilled by exporting material from Manchester into India. From the industrial centers, and Manchester is an example, but from the industrial centers of Britain into India, finished raw materials are sent, finished products are sent back to India and then sold in the Indian markets, okay. And Indian products produced in India are discouraged by how? By the process of taxation and protectionist tariffs. So you devise a tax regime which favors products from Manchester. That is an example of industrial centers in Britain. So you devise a taxation regime which favors products from Britain and discourages products produced in India, and then create the demand. Artificially create a demand in India for the finished products which you are importing into India, and then sell it into the market. So that is a very shrewd policy that was followed. And what does it result in? It results in the impoverishment. Results in the impoverishment of which class? The artisanal class of India. the artisanal classes of India face great impoverishment because of this development. And on top of that, the demand in India for products made of cotton and silk, that is high quality products made of cotton and silk, also diminishes because of the territorial shift to the territorial modality by Britain. How? Because of the extinguishing, because of the dissolution of the ruling class. The ruling class no longer, there is no longer a ruling class to demand high quality cotton and silk products, okay, because the courts, because of the urban centers, the courts, the administrative centers have all been dissolved because of the territorial expansion of Britain. So all of this combined produces a complete impoverishment of the artisanal classes in India, classes of people who were completely devoted to the process of textile and handloom production in India. Certain urban centers like Dhaka, which were connected to fine production of fine muslin cloths, okay, clothes which could pass through, it was said the clothes made of such fine silk products which could pass through a ring, okay, entire sheets of clothes which could pass through a finger ring. Such centers like Dhaka, where such things were produced, such great quality materials were produced, these industrial centers, they completely gets dissolved. Industrial centers in Awadh, they completely gets dissolved, and people who in the population which is connected directly to these industries, okay, they get dissolved, they get distributed into the countryside. All right, so this produces great a period of great unemployment, a period of great distress among the people of India. Now, having said that, it is something we have to remember when it comes to deindustrialization of India, the most important point, and how it is related to the awakening of the national spirit in India, is because deindustrialization of India is a primary, one of the most fundamental parts of the economic critique of British rule. The economic critique of British rule, perfected by people like Dadabhai Naoroji, M.G. Ranade, the economic critique of British rule is predicated upon such developments as the deindustrialization of India. Other things are related to it, of course, that is the land revenue policy of Britain in India, but the deindustrialization of India is a fundamental part of the economic critique of British rule in India. The realization that British rule in India has been sapping Indian industrial prowess and the prowess of the Indians to aspire to something greater than what they are doing right now. That is the economic critique of British rule in India, first expounded by M.G. Ranade and people like M.G. Ranade and other proponents of the critique. This realization comes because of the theory of deindustrialization of India. So, I hope this is clear to you, and I hope that you guys will be working hard. For today, I take your leave, and as I have already told you, this in a nutshell is what the deindustrialization of India is. Keep working hard. Thank you.